Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield.
Flipping heck.
And this is the Zwiftcast. You want Zwifty news and chat? You're in the right spot. Coming up this episode. Garmin buys Tacx for a rumoured €170 million. This is a big deal, but what might it mean for Zwift and Zwifters? World choice. What are Zwifters actually up to now they've got the option? The Women's Super League kicks off in Koblenz with the Zwift All-Stars leaving the pros for dead. And a ton of Zwifty news, chat and gossip. Let's go with episode 61.
Flipping heck.
And as well as Matt, we have poised like coiled springs, ready to dispense opinion and wisdom in equal measure, my fellow Zwftcasters Shane Miller and Nathan Guerra. G'day mate, how's it going?
It's still nice and warm down here. Summer is in full swing and we have another heat wave this week. So actually I've been indoors a bit because it's been pretty hot.
I keep reading, Shane. I mean, I read an opinion piece in a newspaper. It was an Australian writer in Australia saying that Australia this year is like hotter than hell and like borderline uninhabitable this summer. I mean, is that, typical newspaper columnist overstatement, or, are we going to see a retreat from your great country at some point in the near future?
No, that's pretty much the case, and that's how we do like it. So keeps the tourists away or in minimum numbers at this time of year. So no, it's pretty good. But up north, there's actually floods because it's the wet season. So we have everything in Australia at this time of year. So lots of Zwifting going on too, though.
And yo, dude, my friend Nathan Guerra, the Midwest, of course, freezes. Happily, you've no polar vortex at the moment, but you're responding with a number I notice of big, long 5-hour rides and stuff inside. You're really serious about racing again this year, it looks like to me.
Are you like spying on me or something, Simon? What's happening here? So it's just whatever it takes. I mean, if I'm gonna show up to racing, I'm not gonna show up to be off the back. That's just how it works. I mean, I don't really ride my bike for fun. I never did. I ride my bike because I want to win. I was always there for the competition. Even when I was little, like when my dad first got me on, I was on 2 wheels when I was 2, literally, no training wheels. And immediately it was to a racetrack. So I guess that's just kind of in me. So 5-hour rides is what it takes if you want to lose weight and get fast. You got to bring the volume up. So I'm excited though.
You're scaring me a bit there, Nathan. I don't ride my bike for fun. Oh my goodness me.
Winning is fun, Simon. Winning is fun.
I need a bit of fun in my life. My bike riding is kind of fun at the moment. Comical fun, actually. So slowly, it's comical. But anyway, right. All right, here we go. Let's get going with episode 61. Okay, let's kick off with some discussion of what is, and I use this word without exaggeration, a seismic development in the trainer world. The merger, takeover deal, call it what you will, of Garmin and Tacx. Let's keep things really simple. Garmin has bought Tacx. Nobody saw this coming, and it dropped like a proper bombshell a few days ago.
Flipping heck.
Quite so, Matt. Flipping heck indeed. So I called up Rainmaker to get his take. Seismic or not?
No, I think that's pretty much spot on. I think I can't think of another change, another acquisition that we've had in recent years that is as big of a deal as this. This is pretty massive in terms of not just the direction of Tacx or the direction of Garmin, but the direction of the industry and where things might be going forward from here.
Could this then be a catalyst for Zwift to enter the hardware business, by which I mean make their own trainer? Ray is in little doubt.
And then when you talk to every trainer company in the world that I've talked to, which is all of them kind of believe that same thing, that it's only a matter of time before Zwift wants to get into the hardware business, to have end-to-end control, because that's something that they look at Peloton and the success that Peloton's had, and a large part of that is because Peloton owns the entire experience.
Okay. So how, who and when, they're the 3 big questions. How is pretty simple. With all that new cash in the bank, Zwift just buy a trainer company. So who? Not Wahoo, probably. They're too big and likely not in the mood to sell at the moment. But the other 2? Elite and Cyclops look very vulnerable now. I mean, do you think it's out of the question that Zwift could, buy Elite?
No, I think both of them would be prime targets right now for that, without question in my mind. I think Cyclops slightly more than Elite. Certainly Cyclops is in a definitely the roughest position out of all the trainer companies, all the majors, if you will. And it's not that they're doing anything wrong, right? That's probably a really key thing to understand. They're not developing bad products. They're just not developing new products. When you go out like they did this past year in Eurobike, just 9 months or so ago, whatever it was, and basically just put out a new colored trainer, right? They simply took their previously black and yellow trainer and made it grayish black and called that a new version. That's not gonna work anymore. Not gonna work when every other trainer is quiet. And so I think they're in a tough spot there. I think they are incredibly ripe for acquisition by Zwift. The same is true as well of Elite. Less so Elite because the fact that if Zwift were to acquire Elite, they would have to deal with the water bottle side of Elite, which is just as big from their business standpoint as Tacx is, and they'd have to deal with some of the other things that Elite does that make it a little less appealing. And I'm assuming also Elite would go for a much higher price tag than Cyclops would.
So that's how and who, maybe. How about when?
I would be blown away if we don't see Zwift acquire someone by Eurobike, or at least by the end of the year. It just makes so much sense at this point. And I think if you turn your attention back to Zwift and their aspirations to be more Peloton-like, it just makes a ton of sense.
Zwift to buy Cyclops by August then. Could happen, though only those attending Zwift board meetings are likely to know for sure. Let's say it did happen. How might this affect Zwifters? Because while all the corporate manoeuvrings may be fascinating, what listeners are most likely interested in is how the corporate jockeying may affect them. One idea is that Zwift may make certain features available only to those on a Zwift trainer, just like Tacx do now with Roadfeel or Wahoo do now with their Climb.
The concern within the greater trainer industry is that Zwift will offer features that are only available to people that are on this particular hardware platform. So Zwift will go in and say, hey, here's our new Zwift Bikers of Trainer, and if you want to race, that's only available on this particular platform, or only these certain requirements. And one of the things they've talked about is that they will likely in 2020 establish requirements, hardware particular requirements around racing. And so with that backstory, you look at that and go, well, this is an opportunity where Zwift's not likely going to say, hey, if you want to use Zwift, you have to have a Zwift trainer. Zwift will probably start off kind of small and say, hey, if you want to use Zwift in this certain scenario or this new feature or this new thing, you're going to have Zwift hardware. There are plenty of examples out there where companies start to kind of build these small ecosystems that are reliant on you purchasing more stuff from them in order to kind of build out that next level.
Now, it must be said that this is very far from certain, and even if it did happen, it's a long way down the road. But Ray is fairly certain that one day it will.
At no point has Zwift come along and said, hey Ray, hey DCR, we have no plans to do that. And usually when something like that happens and a company definitely disagrees with it, they would say something like that. They would issue a statement, they would say, hey, just want to clarify with you, we have no plans to do that, etc. And at no point have they said that. So to me, that kind of puts that out there as that's a very real possibility, since they certainly haven't declined any part of that story or any part of that line of thinking. So again, kind of solidifying a little bit of what Zwift might be looking at doing down the road.
What Zwift might be looking at down the road. Well, this is what keeps the Zwftcast in business, fellas? We'll move on to discuss some other aspects shortly, but before we do, Shane, that scenario just sketched out there by Ray, where Zwift would only enable certain features if you bought a Zwift trainer. And we've got to say on this is a long way down the road. A long way down the road. But visible. I mean, how likely is that in your view of happening?
Oh, look, it's a hard one because we do see that with the Neo 2 and the Roadfeel. I don't think it will be due to trying to get people to buy their hardware. It may be features that are only enabled through the hardware, through the new technologies and the advancements of the new trainers that are out there or the new bikes. So quite a possibility. Look, we're really going to have to see. It's all total speculation now. The question around Zwift becoming a hardware company has been thrown around quite a bit. I've had a bit of a think about this. I think Zwift are already a hardware company. They own Milestone. They own the rights to the Virtua Pro bike or some licensing there. So they already are there. They're a hardware company. They just don't have the bike hardware yet. So it's inevitable, I think. But how they execute that in the market, exciting times. That's all I can say. We're going to get some new tech, no doubt, in the future. What are we going to be riding?
But you're with Ray. You do feel that, it's an inevitability that Zwift will one day own a trainer company and have a Zwift trainer.
Yeah, look, I mean, looking at the Peloton model, looking at all the other models, there's a lot of money in spin bikes. If you can do it right, Stages themselves have like hundreds of thousands of Stages bikes out there in spin studios already. They're a cycling company. They're making a lot of money from that. Wattbike are the same. So Peloton, there's a few others out there. So I think it's going to be a revenue stream that Zwift will be looking at. And if they can make something that appeals to both the spin class people, the spin studios, which are one and the same, and us as hardcore cyclists and triathletes, I think they'll be onto something.
It is hard to see beyond them not doing that. I mean, it really is, I have to say. Anyway, we're obviously we the focus of our discussion on this big deal between Tacx and Garmin ought to be Zwift, because we're the Zwftcast and people are interested in what happens on Zwift. But we do need to look a little bit wider. So let's do that right now. I mean, Shane, both you and I have been to Holland and been to Tacx and met the people. I mean, there's a really distinct culture there. It's very non-hierarchical, very quirky. I mean, there are no bosses apparently. I don't really like national stereotypes thing, but the Dutch, they really are a supremely laid-back nation. Now, neither laid-back nor quirky are kind of attributes that you often find, I don't think at least anyway, in American listed corporations' culture. Do you think there's going to be a big culture clash here?
Oh, that's a very good question, because there are two very, very different cultures. The American side, the Dutch side. As you said, Tacx is very welcome, very family-owned, laid back. I've been to their headquarters 3 or 4 times now, and you sit down, you're welcomed, you meet the owners and then the original owners. And yeah, how that's going to mix, I'm not quite sure. I don't think it's going to be a problem for anybody, especially as the consumer level. But as a corporation, it might be a little different if Garmin come in and start making people work more American, if that's the term. Yeah. I don't think it'd be much of a problem. It's just one of those corporate things that always takes place when two companies merge.
And I mean, they may continue to run Tacx as a brand and leave it to have its own culture. I mean, in many ways, it's been very successful. Okay, next little kind of subtopic coming off this. And Nathan, sorry to exclude you from the conversation on this, but I do feel it's probably Shane's natural area of expertise here. Shane, do you think that, Garmin are an unbelievably wealthy company? They're just on a completely different scale from anything we know in indoor cycling. They've got money to invest. Could they put some of that money towards reviving Tacx's software ambitions? I mean, we are old enough and ugly enough to remember Tacx training software, which was the Zwift before Zwift. Let's not forget that. I mean, it wasn't particularly good. But it kind of worked in a kind of way. It failed for lots and lots of reasons, but it was a Zwift before Zwift in a way. So that expertise does exist within Tacx. Do you think Garmin could come along to Tacx and say, okay, we think Zwift needs a really serious competitor. Here's a shed load of money. Build something to challenge Zwift.
They could try, but they won't succeed in doing exactly that. The reason I say this is because you'll have to build something the same as Zwift and better again to get people to move over. And at the moment, I think the void that Zwift filled was people want to train online, use all this indoor connectivity we now have and online social networks, and they want to find their little group to ride with. Zwift has just soaked all of those people up and given them that experience. For Garmin to come along, everyone's already soaked up. Everyone already has that experience provided. The one thing they could do is come along and fill another niche or another need or another area that either hasn't been invented yet, be that 3D or true immersiveness or something like that. I'm not quite sure. We've got to spitball these things. Tacx have done a lot of work on their real riding videos lately. There's a lot of new versions of those coming out. Maybe continuing to develop those to have their own software, because all the other trainer companies will be cool, have their own software. Other companies have their own software utilities. I don't think they will challenge Zwift at all, much like Garmin Connect just doesn't challenge Strava.
Exactly. That's the exact parallel, isn't it? Because, as you say, they've got to build a service that's better. Then they have to migrate everybody across. And if you look at I don't know when you last talked to your mates about a Connect segment, but
They do exist. They do
I've
exist.
not had that. Yeah, I've not had that conversation with my cycling buddies recently. I mean, Garmin trying to out Strava with Connect just simply didn't work. I think that would be a very good parallel if they tried to out Zwift. Okay, next one. We know Tacx have got, well, we think it's almost ready. I've got written down here on my script, it's almost ready. I mean, we've got to believe it's almost ready, but they have an almost ready smart bike. Now, that could conceivably slot into a sort of Peloton type model. So Garmin they could, launch a kind of Peloton challenger. I mean, there's enough expertise and resource there between the two companies. It's the hardware, as we know, plenty of cash. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to see lots of advertising with yummy mummies with their bike set up on the deck of their beautiful chalet home against a backdrop of snow-capped mountains and jiggly waterfalls, because Garmin aren't very good at that kind of thing. But you see what I mean here. I mean, that wouldn't be welcome news in Long Beach, I don't think, if that happened.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed it. And that's aiming at another niche or another area, not competing directly with Zwift, but doing something off to the side, maybe even better, because we know how big Peloton are. They are huge. So let's just say Garmin has that already, the wheel's already turning for that. As the bike can come in, slot straight into there. They've just got themselves a smart bike already that looks pretty good. Again, we still haven't seen the production units, but it's promising. It just takes a bit of software, but then it comes into the service delivery side of things. And again, that's where Peloton do it really, really well. I always praise their service delivery of their presenters are well-lit, well-spoken, well-motivated, well-trained. They become superstars in their own right. Could Garmin do that? No, I'm not quite sure they're a company to build superstars, but hey, look, you never know, and that's definitely an option.
They can buy it. They can buy it, though, Shane. They can buy it. I mean, that's just that's just good TV. That's just good TV production, and you could see these kind of superstar trainers being kind of trainers, whatever the term is for those people.
Presenters, trainers, motivators.
Yeah. I mean, you could see some kind of transfer market for them where, huge bucks was paid to move them from one company to another. Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Okay, last one on this then. I know you're still there, Nathan. We're coming back to you shortly, but last one on this. The product line at Tacx, I mean, surely we see some changes there. It is a bit of a mess, to be honest. I mean, the Neo is an absolute class act, no doubt. Still class leading for me. Flux is sort of a bit of a mushy middle, and the wheel-on offerings, frankly, they're a bit of a mess. I'd like to see that whole product line cleaned up, streamlined. That surely is the kind of thing Garmin would concentrate on.
Yeah, I'd really hope so. As you said, the wheel-on offerings from Tacx, I think there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those to choose from. It really needs to slim that down. For the Neo itself, I just want a native throw axle on the Neo. I've been putting my bike on and off the Neo all week with the little adapter with my new throw axle bike, and I'm like, oh God, this is a bit of a pain. So hopefully we'll see some changes there. But look, I don't predict we'll see anything in the next 6 months, maybe not even the next 12 months. I think it will have to wait through till Eurobike this year to really find out where this relationship is going between the two, because we do know Tacx have the biggest stand there at Eurobike. Well, actually, Wahoo was pretty big this year too, or last year. So I think we might see some announcements there. As for new products, I don't think we'll see a Neo 3 or anything new just yet, because these two are going to have to get to know each other first. But my question is the Neo bike going to be called the Geo bike, given Garmin and will they do a turn-by-turn navigational thing for the bike itself that goes nowhere? I mean, these are the questions we need answered. So it's going to be it's exciting times. It really is. Seeing two successful companies merge to take things forward, I'm excited about it. I really am.
Yeah, and I'm not going to apologise for devoting so much time on the Zwftcast to this, because, the word I used was seismic. It is seismic. I mean, it's a slow earthquake, as you say, and I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we'll see much of anything happening of note in the next 6 to 9 months, but this really is a big deal, which will have long-term impact in the indoor trainer market. Okay, one final little tidbit. A Dutch newspaper, I have no idea whether this is true, Dutch newspaper claimed to have found out what it costs for Garmin to buy Tacx, and they're quoting a figure of 170 million euros. We have absolutely no way of finding out whether this is correct. but it's interesting. Right then, back to Zwift proper. World choice. What the
Flipping heck.
is going on, fellas? It seems completely random. I mean, sometimes the worlds are equally split. Sometimes the default world when not Watopia is overrun and Watopia is virtually empty, which seems weird. Richmond has been packed. Is this progressing as anybody thought it might do? And Nathan, any insight here into what's going on?
My only guess is that Zwift is using certain worlds for more events at certain times, since it seems like it's someone's choosing for lots of cyclists to go to one place, or it is just totally random and people just happen to be going one place or another. But my only guess is that there is some sort of force, and that force is Zwift itself choosing where they're going to put a lot of the events to populate, I don't know, a world, or for some reason they just want everything to kind of be on London, or they want everything to be on Watopia, or whatever it might be for the events that might be getting scheduled on that date. That's my only. Otherwise, I have no idea what's going on. We all thought that Watopia was going to be the thing, and the guest world would get kind of some percentage, but it's been all over the place. Tons of people, no people, Watopia, the other, whatever. It's definitely random.
Completely random. That's an interesting idea. I'd not really thought of that. What, you think there could be some behind the scenes tinkering going on, to try to keep numbers relatively balanced between the two worlds?
It might just be an efficiency thing. Like, it's easier to just schedule on one world today. Okay, we'll just schedule everything on. I think it might be that simple, that it isn't even like some mastermind plan to make worlds look more popular or less popular, or like some sort of popular. Yeah, it's not popularity content. So I think it might just be, today we're just going to schedule a lot of stuff for London because that's easy. Like, it might be that simple, unless a event promoter requests something other. They they just, so I don't know. I haven't scheduled events in a long time, so I don't know how the process has changed over the years. I have a feeling that it might have be a little bit more involved now. So I know that there is a process for scheduling events with the community, but I would need more information to be able to answer that better, actually.
Yeah. Shane, I mean, there's a theory abroad that actually this is just people just taking the default option. I mean, and what's happening is completely explicable by, the vast majority of Zwifters looking at that screen and thinking, well, actually, they probably don't even think I can't be bothered messing around with that. I would normally have said I can't be asked dicking around with that, but you know what I mean. And just gone with the default option. But even that wouldn't kind of explain some of the weird things we're seeing.
Yeah, look, I don't know. We were called out. I think it was aimed towards our general direction, as the Zwift experts got it wrong, because we all said, well, I definitely said, and the numbers indicated last time that when we spoke about this, it was going to be about a 90-10 split. And I said, look, that's the numbers that I was seeing. Now, that was late January. So here's my theory on where I was coming from with that. Late January, Watopia was still in the rotation of the calendar. So it came up as the default. So when people logged in, they're like, oh, what next? They weren't aware of that new feature. So the days that I was checking, and it was a 90% on Watopia, 10% on World whatever, I think that explains that. But now Watopia is never in the rotation of the calendar. I've not seen Watopia come up as default on my screen. So I'm not quite sure. But yeah, Nathan's right. We're seeing a bit of a flip-flop between the two. We're seeing numbers here, numbers there. Richmond surprises the heck out of me. What's going on there? Yeah. Richmond, really? I mean, 2015, I was a teenager back then. I had hair back in 2015. That's so long ago. No, it's a good race course, I guess. I don't know.
No, strangely enough, we had a bit of kind of we sometimes have a little informal chat with HQ in between the Zwftcasts, and my reading of that little chat was they don't know either, actually. That there are some things going on here that can't be easily explained, and I don't mean that in a weird way. I just mean that it's not quite progressing in the way that everybody thought it might. Maybe the only person who's not surprised is John Mayfield.
I'm just imagining seeing a big lever on John Mayfield's desk, and he just pulls it one way, it goes to one world. He pushes it the other, it goes to the other way. And he just sits there and goes, "No, this way now," and pulls the lever. So that's what I think's happening. It's got to be.
Do you think he's stroking a white cat at the same time as he does that?
The lever is called the curator.
That's got to be it.
Oh, don't start that again. Okay. All right. Well, before we get to the launch of the Women's Super League Racing Series, let's just talk about a mysterious little clip of something we didn't recognise, which I'm not even quite sure where this comes from, somewhere deep in the code, I think, and is apparently called World Zero. And, of course, it's our old friend, Jonathan Levy from Zwift Hype. He's been rooting around deep in the files again. Good old Jonathan. He does it so we don't have to. And he found this and posted it. I mean, it's obviously Zwift, but it doesn't look well, it's clearly not any of the existing worlds. There's been some speculation it's early work on the Yorkshire course, or should I say a possible Yorkshire course for the UCI Worlds next year. But that seems pretty early to me. I mean, I can't. Maybe they have started work on it that early, but it seems very early to me. Although there was a kind of big rock formation thing, which was redolent of a couple of very well-known Yorkshire landmarks, must be said. But, there's rocks all over the world. Shane, we do know there's an extension due in Watopia kind of about now-ish. What's your betting on what we're getting?
I haven't heard anything official, but I have been watching a few YouTubers. There's a certain triathlon YouTuber who did visit Zwift HQ a few weeks back and did say there was going to be a flat time trial course.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Or an addition to World.
Yeah.
So flat time trial edition. That's all we know. That's all I've seen.
Flattish, good for testing. I'd kind of heard that as well. Possibly with a climb into it. Anyway, I could ask you to speculate, Nathan, but I think you're probably just going to say the same thing. So let's talk about something more interesting. This boy Levy, I mean, how does he get this stuff? And is he right to blast it all over social media? I mean, does this happen? I speak with no authority whatsoever about this world. Does this happening in the wider gaming world, this kind of thing?
Well, okay, on the right thing, okay, whether or not he ought to. It is anything that's on my computer, I own, unless I've signed something otherwise. I'm not sure it says anything in...
Like a terms of service?
Yeah, in the terms of service. Once I download Zwift and I have the game and I go looking through the files, because I'm assuming he's looking through buried files that are on, in the program, or if there's some sort of public-facing server somewhere or something that has files somewhere that's old. I don't know where, there could be something like that too.
To be clear to people who are not already in this rabbit hole, Jonathan seems to be rooting around on stuff that Zwift send to his machine.
Yeah, and they send to everyone's machine, though. This is on everyone's machine.
Exactly, on everyone's machine. He's not like hacking into Long Beach to do this.
No, not at all. And so since it's already with the game client, then why wouldn't it? Everybody has access to it. So it's not on him. It's on Zwift to not have things in the game client that we aren't supposed to see, some sort of encryption or like Llama's saying there. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. And if they don't want things going out there, then it should get locked down a little bit more, and it does happen in the gaming world here and there. Usually those kind of leaks, though, are not really leaks. Like it was on purpose. So,
well, that's the next question. If it's so easy to find, why, and they don't want it to be, why is it? Well, maybe for a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't see it getting shut down. So it's almost kind of building exactly what the name of the page is, hype. So, I mean, people start seeing these little hints of stuff. And then there's stuff that he's doing that's not real at all. There's the ride where supposedly there was customization on Zwift, and it was, to me, it looked like OBS, with multiple layers trying to make it look like he was customizing Zwift. But that stuff, it just, I don't know. I think it's funny, but at the same time, there's lots of people who think it's totally real because they don't know that background. And I'm like, that bugs me a little bit like, well, let's be, I don't know, whatever. It's fun, but at the same time, I'm like, well, these people are like, mad at Zwift maybe because they're like, where is this? I want it. And then it starts turning Discord, and I don't like Discord. Like that bugs me a little bit, but whatever. It's fun still too.
Shane, I think you've got a slightly different view of our boys' antics, haven't you? I think you're a little bit more headmasterly about this.
Yeah, what I can and will say about this will be limited due to the nature of people emailing me litigious information from law firms. No, look, there is a terms and service there, and all of these actions are definitely covered by the terms and services of Zwift. If you dive into those, there's a number of things about who owns the game code, what looking into, disclosure, and all that sort of stuff, or modifying. I think the main one is modifying the game experience or doing anything like that, because potentially that could harm either server side and bring everyone down. Zwift's now no longer a game as such. There's now no longer 5 people online. There's 5,000 people online. And if you were tinkering on something and either DOSed the server or took down the server accidentally because of something you're doing on the client side, that's all on you, and you've impacted many thousands of people. So depending on
what you're saying is the next glitch on Zwift, we can all blame Jonathan.
Yeah, why not? Well, we can't not blame him then. So, no, I don't know. It's a risky move to allow that to happen. There's something about, like, you can drop unencrypted files onto a client. That's fine. You can have a look through those. No worries at all. But when you start changing the gameplay or enticing others or incentivizing others to gameplay, such as joining a bot that's going the other way or something like that, and if that takes the server down, there's a lot bigger ramifications than just, hey, look what I can do. It's like, oh, shit. Everyone can't ride. So that's my only concern there. I mean, this is from wearing my IT security hat and infrastructure and continuity of service, etc. So, an interesting split on that. I'm going to sit in the middle and say I don't know enough about either side to express an opinion on that one. Okay, let's go racing.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Charlton and welcome to round 1 of the Women's KISS Super League, live here in Germany.
Now this, as Rebecca said, is week 1 of 8 weeks of racing with some of the finest female professional riders. We'll go head-to-head on Zwift against some of the best riders taken from the Zwift community.
But here we go. The legs are definitely locking here. The watts are going, and here we go. The orange numbers right from the get-go here. We still do have a solid pack at this point of about 21, 22 riders, though, in the main pack that we are looking at.
But it didn't stay that way for long. The community-based All-Stars team, selected by Rachel Elliott, who was also virtual DS on the night, soon started showing strongly, chased hard by what looked like the strongest opposition on paper at least, the Canyon SRAM team.
I know a lot of the riders on there in real life, and I know just how strong they are, people like Alice Barnes. To be brutally honest, I expected people like Alice to be right up there at the finish.
Well, the All-Stars getting very organized at the front end of the pack right now.
Out of the aquarium, Sharon, for example, Sharon Bird, who was riding for the All-Stars, she's a very good climber, and each time she came out the aquarium, she'd be off the front, and that created a bit of disruption.
We've got a little bit of kick here coming from the Dream Team going into those orange numbers. There it is going to be McKay. 500.
It's very, very hard to break free from a strong bunch. But so, yeah, all very exciting stuff.
It sure was. The pack broke up quicker and more extensively than in the men's races, with the sprints certainly seeming to play a bigger part in splitting the bunch than in the equivalent men's events.
And we're coming on into the first sprint of the day.
Really exciting race. I mean, there was all the hype online. You've got the really, really good commentary as well.
200 meters to go, it looks like. Tanya Erath now, it looks like, coming on with 10.4 watts per kilometer, 11 watts per kilometer coming from Tanya Erath here.
And I think it made an even more exciting race than any of the men's races that we've seen, and that's not at all being biased. I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it was excitement right from the start all the way to the finish, so I thought it was a great, great show as well as being a great, great race.
Kilogram right now. There's the live shots there coming from the Canyon SRAM team on site now with their Zwifts behind them. They're hammering away.
The coverage of the women's race was as good, if not better, than anything we've seen from the Zwift production team. Full disclosure, I have been part of that for some of the races, but we still have a way to go. Behind the scenes, this is being heavily prioritised, and both the men's and the women's series status as demonstration events will give some scope to learn lessons and finesse the coverage as a viewing experience. Watch this space. With distribution on so many platforms, getting accurate viewing figures can be tricky. My snapshot on YouTube showed the audience for the women about half that of the men, but that may not be fully representative, although it would correlate approximately with the in real life ratings for women's racing. Rachel Elliott is confident it will only grow.
We will begin to see this elevated level of interest. I know I've seen men talking about it in an entirely level way to the men's racing. And I think we will begin to see this sort of chicken and egg thing. And I think it's great. I think what they're doing is great. And I think the fact that they are promoting women on a level playing field to the men, I think it's great. And that we get our own night to race. We're not, head to head with the men. We've got our Tuesday nights, the men have got their Wednesday nights. So we've got, every right to flourish and bloom just as much as the men's race does.
The All-Stars' dominance of the race was rewarded at the line.
Got two All-Stars in there, Bird and Hubach now trying to make their way to the front and set things up perfectly for the All-Stars.
After a closely contested and thrilling sprint.
Up and out of the saddle now, can she make it happen? I'm not sure it's going to happen for Harris, as it's going to be Shoair on the front. Shoair hanging on, just barely. It looks like it was Hubach, though, maybe nipping it at the line. We're going to have to look at the replay. I think it was
the winning margin was tiny, but Louise Hubach took the win and set the All-Stars up at the top of the leaderboard after round one. Rachel Elliott expects that the pros won't take it lying down.
They will improve as time goes on. So I think there will be some catching up to do, but equally the girls in the All-Stars team will be getting to know who they're riding against. So they'll have an advantage as well and be able to see what the other riders have been doing and play to their own strengths more too.
Nathan, a bit tricky for us, and we'll ask Shane to be an independent third party on this. Bit tricky for us because we're both involved, but the coverage of the women's race was, in my view, outstanding, actually. I'm going to use that word. I mean, given the limitations that face us in covering this stuff, I thought it was definitely the best yet, and just a little sign of how exciting Zwift could be as an e-sport when you get the coverage not completely correct, but actually getting the coverage closer to a place where it ought to be. Do you agree, or do you ever? In fact, do you watch back coverage that you've been involved in and think we could have done that better?
Yeah, I just sit around listening to myself talk all the time. No, I never. Because I cringe a little bit watching it back, but at the same time, I need to hone the craft a little bit too. And so, but yes, as far as the women, man, they take chances. I agree with Rachel. It was super exciting. But I mean, the guys have been doing so too with the teams that have been showing up to be tactical and race. I just feel like there's a little more pensive like attitude, a little bit more. This is a big risk to take, and where if they try and make any attacks, the first race there were a lot of attacks in the men's race, but that kind of calmed down. It got a little more tactical as the races progressed. The women, I mean, it seemed like were attacking left and right and were able to make moves happen a little bit more. Some people say
but hang on, let me just pull you back, which you've
okay, I'm going in the weed.
Yeah, no, you've very modestly steered away from, which is the coverage, which I do think is important. If this thing has a future as an e-sport, it has to have a product that people want to be able to watch, and a lot of that is getting the narrative and the race narrative right, and the technical coverage correct, so that it's a good viewing experience. I mean, do you think that women's race, partly because of the nature of the race, but partly because of the nature of the coverage, was getting a step closer to that?
Yeah, definitely. Seeing what the winner what the runner-ups had gone through, at least, with the Canadian SRAM team right there, having the live riders is a huge thing. I watched Eva Buchholz win the German national championship. There was something on the socials, just with a little bit of a tear in my eye, like seeing how much she put in and how happy she was coming across the line there. that was huge. And
absolutely. Yeah,
those moments are like what make me go, yeah, this is definitely something that can be a sport that people will celebrate the pinnacle of what we're all chasing after in bike racing, so because that's really what it's all about, is that celebration of the efforts that we see out there. So if we can get more expression of that, I think we need more expression of that in game though. I mean, because if we can't get the live riders, somehow they need to be able to express themselves maybe in some way, or who knows what. But I think it's definitely the coverage was much better too, and I think you were involved in a little bit of that though, Simon.
Well, I wasn't involved in the act. Well, I've played a small part. I wasn't actually there for the women's race because there was some doctors attending to my knee issue, shall we say, around that point. But some of the things I wanted to see had worked their way into the broadcast, and it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but there were just some basic stuff that for me just made it easier to watch. Shane, you can be a good referee here because Nathan and I think, are a bit too close to it, and I know you've got your doubts about this whole thing. And yes, we have a long, long way to go on some real basics, like the most basic one, which is just getting the game itself more ready for racing, which it just kind of isn't at the moment. But all of those doubts aside, do you think that a step forward is being taken as the KISS Super League progresses?
Oh, I was just about to tee off on this one, but you've sort of posed a question where I've got to say, it's doing well. It's moving forward. But look, I'll tee off anyway. Look, I'm sick and tired of being told how big this is going to be, how big this is going to be. This is going to be the biggest thing. How, God damn it, when is it going to be something then? I'm tired of the what it will be. When is it? When is it going to be? So that's got to be now. It has to be now. You have one shot at showing this new sport to people. And if they come in and see something that should have been prepared a lot longer, a lot earlier, and they're not happy with it, they're not going to come back. Those who taste Dr. Pepper, have you ever tasted Dr. Pepper? You probably do it once. You ain't going back to that. So don't let Zwift or the esports side of Zwift be the Dr. Pepper side of things. Just something as simple as the lighting. I'm seeing they're the same color, like the riders and the promo shots. Everyone's the same color as the background. That has one place in this world, and that's in the military. You want to blend into the background. With Zwift, you want to be front and center and bright and right in the lights. It's got to be something as simple as that. The feedback rolling in as well on the live streams. Look, there's good, there's bad. There's everybody inside the bubble in there loving it and supporting everyone. That's cool. But there's also some feedback in there that's on the edge. It's quite negative, but it's coming from people who are spending their time wanting to be entertained by this. Their eyes are right there. Zwift and this esport has their attention. They have to be listened to. If it's just crap posts, then fine, they can be deleted. But there's a lot of common sense being posted in the comments. So I think they have to be
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. There are some real good points in there. There are people asking, for basics that ought to be present. And I think you have an excellent point there about, the kind of Dr. Pepper point, as, a certain I was going to use the word rival, but I actually wouldn't dignify it by saying it's even a rival to Zwift at the moment. But, as somebody has found out recently, first impressions are very, very, very important. The Dr. Pepper test, sure. Quite right too.
No, I did see the kilometers ago.
Zwift have prepared the ground for this by saying these are demonstration events. I mean, is that a fig leaf?
No, that doesn't sit with me. This has been coming for 3 years. This is like a plane being taken, like on the runway, ready to take off. We know what's in the plane. We know what it's going to deliver. The cargo's right there. The people are waiting at the other end. It's still on the runway. God damn it, 3 years. That's quite a long run up there. But look, having said that, listening to the feedback, the kilometers to go was being screamed for, and that has been implemented, which is fantastic. And which group are we watching? That's now been implemented. Fantastic. But these things need to be done 6 months ago on like private servers, on test servers. This thing needs to be oiled. But I mean, that's me sort of commenting from having 1 foot inside the bubble, 1 foot at the other side of the bubble, and like really, really wanting this to succeed, but being told over and over again that it will one day. But
it's back to that thing that I think all three of us and many within the community do find frustrating with Zwift, which is that the pace at which we want things to happen, there is a very, very serious mismatch with the pace at which things actually do happen. Now, there's a sweet spot somewhere there in the middle, which is, the pace at which things actually can happen in a well-run company with a demanding community and lots of priorities. And the question is that sweet spot in the right place? And that's kind of stuff that keeps us going for ages and ages on the Zwftcast. So let's not pronounce about that too much at the moment. But I do think it's, we'd all like to see things happen a little bit quicker. I think is fair to say. Now, okay, we're just going to move this conversation on a bit because I get your point, Shane, about everyone saying it's going to be big, it's going to be big, it's going to be big. But actually, it is such a vibrant area right now. I mean, we've just seen, and I struggle to get my head around exactly how this will work, but the World Tour team Movistar has announced its own competition on the Be Cool platform. Apparently, it's a series of live events based on parts of real-life race courses, the big Grand Tour courses, culminating in a live final in Madrid towards the end of the cycling season. Now, not much detail on this, to be honest, but perhaps the single most interesting bit of this is actually plucked from behind the scenes. Movistar's parent company is the giant Spanish corporation Telefonica, which operates all over the globe. And, let's not underestimate the size of these people. This is one of the biggest telcos in the world. It's not only one of the biggest telcos in the world. According to Forbes, in 2017, it was the 110th largest company of any kind by market cap in the whole world. Telefonica is huge. They have money to burn. And they are now, through a subsidiary, through a toe in the water, whatever, but this is Telefonica getting involved in this. Shane, I would imagine Zwift CEO Eric Minnie is keeping a very, very close eye on that one.
Yeah, that was interesting news announced this week. And they've gone pretty hard on it, calling it an esport, calling it a series and launching their own website. My question is it a move by the company and by the board of the company to get into this, or is it just a cycling fan inside the company who holds a position? That's going to be the big question. If it's a company move into this, it could be very dangerous for Zwift. Competition is good, but it could be like, whoa, they could put a bit of money behind this. Or is it sort of like a James Packer's involved or a Rupert Murdoch's son? Or, for example, here in Australia, we have Jerry Ryan, who's behind Mitchelton Scott, who was Green Edge, etc. So without him, sort of wouldn't exist. It's not really a company move. It's more of a personal thing. So that's my question about this.
That's an excellent point. I mean, you do get these people who have got a bit of budget in great big companies that can pursue a pet project, and that might be related to cycling. So it could be one of those. But it could be a huge strategic move by Telefonica, who nobody knows the answer to that. If it's the latter, wow, it's very interesting. Nathan, I've very little experience of Be Cool as a platform, but I can only imagine it'll face similar challenges that Zwift does in terms of the credibility of racing on it.
Yeah, the last time I interacted with Be Cool was at a trade show, and they told me I had to buy a Be Cool only. It didn't look like there were a lot of people on the platform. I didn't pique my interest right off the bat, and I was already on Zwift beta at that point. It was a long time. It was like 4 years ago. But as far as credibility goes, that for me, credibility is kind of starting to go the policing is becoming really self-evident within the community with Zwift, and Be Cool would have to have its own. It's not talking about the community racing. It's talking about professional racing right off the bat. And so I think it's just kind of built into the assumptions that are happening with a series and all that kind of stuff. It looks really like a marketing tool. I don't understand what they're trying to sell.
No. There's scant detail on how it. Are we going to see Movistar's Grand Tour team in this? Well, I doubt it. Is it for an open event for for users of Beacon? I mean, there's not a lot of detail about it. It must be it must be said.
I mean, I could see them going after esports overall down the road to be like the verified platform, because they have pros right off the bat and they just go right to that area, like boom, right. And it has nothing to do with selling more Be Cool. I mean, they just happen to be the thing that's kind of I don't know. It's weird that they're just jumping, because Zwift has an entire community of racers, like a whole bunch of community of racers, and it's all ecosystem. Be Cool, I don't think they have any ecosystem of racing that I understand at all that would support an upward movement.
No, but they've got a platform. They've got a platform. I mean, I think the common link here, maybe one that's the obvious one, which is they're a Spanish company. Be Cool are a Spanish company, and it might be they've got somebody very, very, very effective in sales who's managed to sell this plan to Movistar. Who knows? We don't know much about it, but it is super interesting and one that I'm certain will be monitored very, very closely, not least by us. Shane, last question on this one. Do you think we're going to see this whole thing develop in a competitive or a collaborative manner? I mean, the arguments for a collaborative manner are so strong, but we live in a competitive world. It looks to me as though it's more likely to be arms race than love-in. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everyone's going to be inventing the virtual wheel over and over again as little islands. That's just the marketplace as it is. The only things they collaborate on would be Ant Plus, maybe Bluetooth. We're talking FTMS and Ant Plus FEC and things like that. They're sort of standards across the board. But when it comes to the sport itself, no. Like things like drafting, things like regulation of weight or users and things like that. No, everyone's going to have to develop those independently, because we just don't see these companies talking to each other. It's a dog eat dog world. I wish it was different, but that's just the way business goes.
We'll end up in a VHS Betamax position, and then something will emerge as the victor. I mean, this could be where, if there was any vision or indeed resource at the UCI, somebody at the UCI said, okay, let's invent the EUCI and get in early here and start.
Yeah, absolutely, to regulate it straight away.
Enforcing some standards and acting as a go-between, between competitive bodies.
And to their credit, CVR went a little bit down that route already, establishing quite a lot of policy and things around their organisation. They were probably a little bit too early, but it needs buy-in from everyone. And from buy-in from everyone, you've got to sort of break down a few barriers of corporate what would you call it? Competitiveship. People just have to work together, and that just doesn't really happen in business, unfortunately.
No. Well, it needs buy-in, and it also needs validation from real-world organisations. Which leads us into my last little bit on this. And apologies for banging on so much about racing, but it is such the vibrant area at the moment. It's stuff where the spotlight is settling because stuff is really happening. Now, with validation from outside bodies, we saw certainly in the UK, the qualifiers for the British National Esports Championships, backed by British Cycling. Obviously, these took place alongside all the other national champs in all the other countries. Many of the other countries. I was in and out of the streams all day long. Looked really successful to me, actually. Huge participation, both in spectating and riding. Looked really successful to me. I know you were on duty throughout, Nathan. And it's certainly in the case of Britain, the finalists, the top 10 will battle it out for a proper jersey. We don't know what it's going to be called yet, but a proper jersey in a live event towards the end of March. And that is likely to be extremely high profile. That event, Shane, I think that will hit cycling media big time. And I think it will probably make its way across into mainstream media on that, really. Now, we've kind of covered this a little bit in our early discussions about this only being a demonstration event. But that label, you're going to see being applied to the British cycling thing, because there's going to be so much attention on it. There's going to be a lot of potentially very critical eyes on this. Not only the standard of coverage, but the actual thing itself. This could be a big moment, I think, don't you?
Yeah, there's already a lot of critical eyes on Zwift and the racing. We even saw this week with the lead up, with the qualification race, a lot of the pros discussing the pros and cons of Zwift and Zwift as a sport. It's a tricky one. I think it all comes down to what's being sold or what's being told. And I think was it Ian Bibby? Look, I can't recall who exactly it was on Twitter. They said, look, it's cycling, but not cycling as in outside cycling. It's just as hard. It's just as, credible.
Yeah, I saw that quote. I saw that quote. Yeah.
So that was a really good way of doing that. It's really hard.
It's racing. It's just not racing. It's just a different kind of racing. Was the kind of
exactly. Now, we don't get this resentment for mountain biking or cyclocross or, say, the Red Hook Crit, which has been cancelled, but, the fixed gear racing, which has now been if we can just sort of twist the message a little bit towards it's just another discipline. It's not going to take over. It's not taking food from the table. It's not taking races away from outside. It's just an option for people to try. So that's the sell that needs to, I guess, get into the people's heads who are critical about this, because there's nothing to be angry about. But cyclists, there's a long tradition of cyclists. Well, I mean, there's a reason why we're still riding bicycles made of 3 triangles. It's a lot of tradition, but it's all about the way it's sold. If that's done correctly, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's a different discipline, and it's an addition, a complement, not a replacement or a substitution. And that's such an important message. Nathan, this is a gamble, particularly the British thing. I mean, I'm focused on that because I know how prestigious the endorsement from BC is and how hard that was to get. But sooner or later, if virtual bike racing as an esport really does have a future, you're going to have to put it on the line.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just in the qualifier, it showed to really shine for, we have amongst the preliminary results, I don't think the official results for who's getting an invite to the live final have been released, but right in there, 4 of the Madison Genesis boys are there. We've got some of the all-stars from the community that are already racing in the KISS Super League. You already have these personalities coming forward. It's being put on the line because you have professionals starting to rise in this esport. You're starting to have professionals rise in this discipline, that they're putting the time, the energy in, getting the results. They're verified. What more do you need? It's time to put the show on. I know Shane's saying, let's show it to you. Well, the boys are showing up and they're showing that they want to race. And so now we need to give them the venues to do it in. And I think British Cycling coming alongside with Zwift and making these events happen is going to put the show on. Now we just got to execute well when it comes to turning the lights and the cameras on.
Especially the lights, yes.
Especially the lights.
There will be some pressure in that area. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Madison Genesis have, taken this by the scruff of the neck, and they've got involved. They've committed. They're serious. People like Mould and Bibby, they're putting stuff on social. You can see the personality coming through. They have played a top game, I think, Madison Genesis in this. The kind of polar opposite to Cofidis, and I'm not going to get into that debate here because we've had it already, and I do think that is a much more complicated situation than it first appears. I don't blame the Cofidis riders. I think there's some failures elsewhere, though. But Madison Genesis have really, really seized this opportunity, and I would argue strongly to their credit and their success. Good on them. Well done. Okay, well, all coming up in the next few weeks. We, of course, will be keeping close eyes on it.
Ride on!
All right, lads. Well, another one has flown by. A few loose ends to tidy up. Let's pause for some appropriate music. It's with great sadness that we report the official death of Jarvis Island. Confirmed in a comment by Eric Min, Jarvis Island, the original Zwift world, is officially consigned to history. We will never see it again. It's a sad day, boys. Rumour has it that if you know the right people and get the right file, actually you can still ride Jarvis. But for the vast majority of Zwifters, they will never, ever have the chance to ride the original. Nathan, are you grieving?
It's funny you bring this up. I'm getting lots of Facebook memories are coming through with Jarvis Island pictures in my Facebook feed, because it's 4 years ago exactly to some of these days that I was putting base miles in with all these new random people from all over the world that I was Zwifting with. My original setup was in here, and I was going to share it actually, how broken it looked compared to what I'm working with. I don't understand. Why can't we have, I don't. Like, we're talking about game modes and secret world zeros and stuff that are out there. Jarvis was awesome. It's like the best crit course ever. I think the best battles I've had were on Jarvis with random Z-Power people who thought they were professional athletes. I mean,
You sure this is not tinged by nostalgia?
completely 100%. But that Italian music will never leave. Never.
Shane, can you see the rest of your life unfolding in a happy manner without the presence of Jarvis Island in it?
Look, speaking of Jarvis and what you guys were saying about nostalgia, it was not the Dr. Pepper scenario. We all drank the Kool-Aid straight away because they got it right. We got on our bikes and went, oh my God, this is amazing. It changes gradient. We can race everyone. And that's exactly where this esports stuff needs to go to as well. But speaking back to Jarvis, I missed that little, what will we refer to it as, little plug of an island. It, good memories there of racing everybody. And and then that one day it swung around and went the other way, just like Lost Island, where like the magnetic changes. And I missed that place. And the capital of Jarvis Island, which I may have mentioned before, is called Millersville. If you look it up on Wikipedia, there's no one who lives there. There's no town there. It's just this deserted whatever it is. And there's a town called Millersville. No link, but I will have to go there one day.
It is sad. Obviously, it's sad for those of us who've been around a long, long time. And that kind of magic of those first few days when, Zwift, or anybody's first few days on Zwift were on Jarvis, if you go way back. And that moment, which we've forgotten now, haven't we? That moment when you got on this and it was like, whoa, this is good. And we whinge and bitch and moan about all the stuff we can't have fast enough now. But, do you remember that first experience when you got on and you thought, wow, this is something completely different? And of course, that
community was there straight away as well. I've got somebody commenting on my Strava ride today who I met on Jarvis. So but the community is still there from that as well. So, take me back. Take me back.
Yeah. Well, maybe it is better, as Eric says, that it's preserved only in memory. I'm sure they've got excellent reasons for it. I don't know what they are, but they must have good reasons for it. But it's a sad day, and Eric does appear to have rammed with a very large hammer the final nail into the coffin. Jarvis, R.I.P. Okay, well, last bit of hack news. We're giving far too much airtime to our friend at Zwift Hype, Jonathan Levy, this week. But dear Jonathan, you've got to hand it to the guy. He's so determined and committed. He found a way to ride Richmond reverse a while ago. Well, because you can, I guess, or maybe because you can't. And this had kind of assumed for a certain cadre of obsessed Zwifter, this had kind of got a bit of a holy grail status, actually. And Jonathan found a way of doing it, and I think he posted it. I didn't do it, I have to say. But the reason it has come up for discussion here is uncharacteristically, I don't think I've ever really seen them do this. Zwift very, very, very quickly put a stop to that. Nathan, why do you think they did that?
That's weird. Like, I have no idea, like, what is going on in the depths of Zwift? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, they're going to break something or...
that can only be the reason.
Like that, yeah. I mean, is something going to break if we ride Richmond in reverse? I'm thinking about that. Like, I'm not sure. Like,
why would you want to ride reverse?
Or, okay, I could also see, like, he accessed something that other people couldn't, and if he was live streaming it or promoting it, and then there's, like, some sort of weird workaround that broke a terms of service somehow, or, they wouldn't want people being promoted to do something that you're not supposed to do. I don't know if that makes sense, but, that's the only...
It was a weird one, Shane. It was a weird one. You don't often see Zwift close something down and that fast.
As I mentioned earlier on, if this did have ramifications greater than just the one single user or just a few users, if this actually broke servers or buffer overflowed something and crashed servers because it was an exception that hadn't been programmed for, that's the problem. And they do need to shut these things down because, again, the risk, it's just the risk. It really is. It's a bit of fun, cool, yeah, but there's just too many people that could be affected by this in the wrong ways.
Think about it. That's the only world you can't ride backwards on. There must be a reason for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so if it's built into the code that you can't do it, and he figured out a way to do it, then maybe there is something that's going to break because they haven't implemented it. So that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. No, me too. I mean, people don't act in an entire. Well, some people do, but people who run a company like Zwift don't act in an entirely random manner. There has to be a reason for that. So, a bit of a slap on the wrist for you there, my friend Jonathan. I think maybe. Yeah, I mean, you can't not love him, can you? Because he's so enthusiastic and committed. But you could see how he might be annoying sometimes to certain people. Anyway, keep at it, Jonathan. Keep testing those boundaries. Okay, fellas. Well, that's it. Another packed one. That has absolutely flown by. Any other business from you two? Shane, you are annoying me with all those pictures of endless blue skies that you're posting at the moment. I mean, are you getting some indoor time at the moment, or is the lure of the outside too great?
No, I've jumped on the Hump Day ride a couple of weeks back and we've live streamed that. And there's always power meters that need to be tested. And the best place to test power meters and obviously indoor trainers is inside. Yep. And when it is really, really hot, best place to be, it's inside. So I still like riding my bike. So I've got to do it somewhere. It's indoors.
I don't know if you want to talk about it on this Zwftcast, but you've got a little bit of a sort of bombshelly video coming up, I think.
Any one of my videos could be interpreted as a bombshell. I think it just depends which law firm's watching on the day. I'm testing a lot of power meters, and I'm testing a Tour de France proven power meter at the moment, and it's just not doing what I want it to do. I'm questioning me throughout the whole video. There's a lot of disappointment faces in the video and a lot of But do watch, because right at the very end, Ariana Grande in llama form makes an appearance, because I had to have some fun when the data doesn't look any good. So, yeah, stay tuned for that one.
Well, I'm struggling, given the encyclopedic knowledge you would expect me to have of Ariana Grande's body of work, which is completely zero. I'm struggling to get that reference, but I will watch the video to make sure I do. Nathan, my friend, does your voice ever get tired?
That's funny. Good question. Why? I mean, because there were a lot of broadcasts this week, wasn't there? I guess.
All day long.
Yeah. So, not really. I mean, I hide sickness pretty well too when it's time to work. But we're doing lots of broadcasts, and I have lots of fun doing it. And I also have 5 kids. So I get to talk to them a lot all day. It's lots of training, making sure everybody stays in line. So it's essentially what broadcast is all about. Just keep everybody in line, let them know what's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's still plenty of I mean, the KISS Super League must be pretty much your main focus at the moment.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So it's KISS Super League. It's the men's and the women's, the KISS Community League. There's a couple other community things happening too that some other people are looking to promote, and if they can get them off the ground, then we will be broadcasting them. So yeah, that's happening, but it's almost this past week it was 6 days of broadcasting at least, and with the production levels going up, the prep is like way more. It used to be when it was just like a KISS or a WBR or something, the prep was 10 minutes if we have everything in place, and we could do like 3 races a day. And now it's like 1 race a day, and it feels like you just like ran a marathon sometimes. So I do, it does get a little tiring, but I love it though at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's going very well. I'm thoroughly enjoying the KISS Super Leagues, really enjoying them, and seeing the progression from week to week is great to see, and thoroughly enjoying your commentary. Nathan, don't listen to those people who have issues with it. Really good commentators are polarizing. People either like them or they don't. So I think that puts you into the category of really good commentator. You stick with it, my friend. Okay. Shane, Nathan, a pleasure. This really has flown by. I know I say that every week, but this really has done. Once again, just apologies to regular Zwftcast listeners. I know the frequency of the podcast hasn't been everything I wanted it to be this indoor season, but you know what the reasons for that are. Those reasons are slowly being dealt with in a successful manner, which I'm happy to report. And on that note, I will say thank you very, very much indeed to Shane and Nathan. Lovely to talk to you both, guys. See you next time. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, boys. Talk soon.
Cheers.
Just the usual bit of housekeeping, so I am completely clear with everybody who listens. Zwift support the podcast, which means they pay me to make it, but we have editorial independence on the Zwftcast, which effectively means that Zwift have no influence whatever over anything we say during the podcast. Thank you very much indeed for listening. See you next time.